What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another round of CEO at the Gas Pump. I am your host, Redtwaun Hill, and today I have a special guest with us, Mrs. Candace Erskine. She's a defense acquisition and program management leader, CEO of Calibra Consultancy, author of Elected Brown Girl, with over 15 years supporting high-stakes Department of Defense programs and a deep-rooted military family legacy. Candace brings a rare blend of strategic leadership, live experience, and unapologetic voice. This conversation is about leadership without permission, owning your narrative, and building legacy beyond titles. Candace, how are you doing today?
Wow, with that introduction, I'm doing great. That
Well
Thank
deserved.
you.
So let's start. I wanted to start at the foundation. You come from a military family. Your father and your brother and your son are all, well, your son is in the military, but your father and your brother are veterans.
Yeah.
How did growing up around service shape how you see leadership, responsibility, and pressure today?
It's funny. I feel like I actually was shaped more by my father being a pastor
Mhm.
than him being a veteran. I think that him being a veteran absolutely influenced the way he instilled in us certain principles. But those principles at the foundation of them were still based on his beliefs in God, right? And so in our home, yes, we had the sternness of a military father, but we had the foundation from a principles standpoint, morals, values, all of that, that came from him being a pastor more than anything. And so I believe that growing up with that type of father in the home, it really helped to instill in me the importance of just honesty. It's at the foundation of who I am, right? When it comes to just simply being a good human being. And so it was important to me at an early age. I learned, hey, you tell the truth, you be an honest person, you have integrity, and all these things. So, growing up with that type of environment really instilled into me the importance of even serving your community, right? Again, having a
Mhm.
father who's a pastor,
Mhm.
service was at the core and actually still is 38 years later with of him pastoring is still at the core of who we are, what we do. We really believe in being there for the community, for our family, just all the way around.
Absolutely, indeed. Is that foundation is what helps shape your confidence and your voice?
You know what? I think the confidence in my voice probably was just something at birth, honestly. I think I came into this world, hey y'all, I'm here, hear me.
Mhm.
And so it's funny, I think my parents were putting me up in front of people with a mic in my hand at the age of 3. So again, confidence in my voice, that was one of those things. I'm a singer, right? And so that's another one of those many aspects of who I am. I didn't have a problem getting up and in front of people, singing, talking, whatever. And so my parents kind of took a hold of that and nurtured it. I believe they
Mhm.
nurtured it by saying, get up there, do it. My brother, on the other hand, complete opposite, very quiet. And so instead, he played the keys while I got up and sung for the people.
That sounds like a dynamic duo. So now I want to transition into your professional background. You spent years in defense acquisition and program management, environments where decisions actually carry real consequences.
Oh,
What do most people misunderstand about about how leadership really works in those spaces?
I think that people tend to miss what is most key, and that is everybody plays a vital role. Everybody, it doesn't matter at what level in the company or organization you're at, it's understanding the value that everyone brings to the table when it comes to fulfilling the mission, right? I was fortunate to be in an organization at one point where that was stressed. It was stressed to us the importance that we all played, the roles that we all played had to do with fulfilling the mission. I think a lot of times people lose sight of that. Instead, for some people, I think the pressure of truly having to perform, the pressure of understanding the importance of what you do, for some people is uncomfortable. And so they have a tendency to it's almost like a paralysis to perform. You get to this place of, oh God, if I fail at this, or if I make a mistake or whatever, realizing, hey, it can actually have a pretty serious impact. You just have to simply learn that the importance of what you do and realizing the consequences of it, that's a part of it. You learn that even as a child, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
consequences to your actions. So we
Mm-hmm.
know this growing up. It's something that's instilled in us. We realize to every action, there's a reaction, right? And so it's no different in the workplace. It's just that depending on what you're doing, it could have a more severe effect than what you might want. But I think it's important to embrace challenges. I've never really been the type to shy away from challenging situations. I think I probably tend to run to them. I'm that person that's like, ooh, pick me. And so I'm not the person that tends to sit back. And I think that's also the reason why I've been fortunate to have some of the positions I've had and opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of, is because I have that type of personality that says, I'll do it. If no one else wants to do it, sure, I'll do it. Let me try. So
Absolutely. How did you personally learn to lead in rooms where you weren't always the expected voice?
not always being the expected, but that part of that question is probably the most key part of it. Being a brown girl is one of the things that I talk about a lot, particularly when it comes to being in the workplace. I have found myself time and time again being the only one in the room that looks like me. At one point, I was a program manager for a company, managing a contract that was well over, I think it was $121 million contract. I was the only, not just female, Black female. I was actually the only Black person that was a program manager for that company. And so coming into the different spaces, doing the different briefings for the VP and all of that, it was like, I walk in, they're thinking I'm somebody's secretary, somebody's
Mm-hmm.
EA, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not expecting that I'm actually the program manager. I manage this contract. And so it's been interesting down through the years of being in rooms, in spaces, at tables where people question, why am I there? I actually, believe it or not, early in my career, I sat in a conference room where we were told, you don't come to the table unless you're invited to the table. And therefore, you sit on the wall. Chairs are lined around the wall. That's where you sit. So, no big deal, because at the time I was an EA, just an
Mm-hmm.
executive assistant, no big deal. And a lady at the table, of course, who doesn't look like me, turns around, looks at me, and then turns to the person whose meeting it is and says, why is she in here? And I remember thinking, wow, that's real bold and disrespectful. But the response that she was given is because I want her here. And so it was in that moment that I realized it's about getting the invitation to the room, showing up, right? And proving why you're in the room. There's a purpose for me being in the room. And it was because at that point, one of the things I was being tasked to do was take everything that everyone was saying in the meeting and
Mm-hmm.
being able to translate that into a process, which later became their standard operating procedures. And then taking that and building all their training material. And then taking that and building some tools in order for them to do what they need to do more efficiently, right?
Mm-hmm.
I earned
Mm-hmm.
my spot at the table. And so I had to learn it early on in my career. I'm coming in the room and I'm gonna prove why I deserve to be at the table. And so my career has absolutely taught me that.
Before you mentioned Brown Girl, and I want to get into your Elected Brown Girl book,
Yes.
but I did have this question because when you said that, it made me want to ask it. When you were responsible for outcomes tied to billions of dollars, what separate leaders from the ones who last to the ones who don't?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say it probably has to do with them empowering their people. So you can be responsible for major money, right? Big contracts with the government, huge teams. I think the success comes not just in the numbers, because people can do that pretty well just from the mere fact of, I understand cost, schedule, performance, right?
Mhm.
So we're going to make sure that we manage the cost properly. We're going to complete on time, all that, and we're going to exceed expectations when it comes to performance. Great. But the leaders that really last and that truly succeed in being a leader are the ones that empower their people. They empower their team. And I think that going down through the years of being on this team and that team and having this boss and that boss, the ones that stood out to me the most as the best leaders to work for were the ones that empowered me, the ones that really saw value in the folks on their team and they pushed them. They gave them recognition for excelling. It wasn't just you're doing what you're supposed to do. No, it
Mm-hmm.
was, you're doing a great job. I couldn't do it without you. And go be great. Keep being great. Keep excelling at what you're doing, because then you're letting them know, wow, you really trust me to do my job and do it well and do it right. No one wants to work for a leader who questions everything they do, automatically assumes that they're going to make a mistake, or not giving them the voice to speak up in a meeting. I had a boss one time, great guy to work for, to the point to where he even had to be out for something. He was like, it's okay, Candace can lead the meeting. And I was thinking, and then it was like, oh, Candace can brief the senior leaders. That's fine. I don't need to go. And then it got to the point, he pretty much had me travel with him often, because he said, I need you to be in here and I need you to set them straight when they say something that's not right. It was funny because at that point he called me a bulldog. He was like, listen, she gonna get in here and he would just let me be me. I didn't have to fit in. And I think a lot of times, right, us brown people, we feel like we got to try to fit in. I don't have to fit in. I'm not even meant to fit in, right? So that's another thing about coming into those spaces where they're not expecting it to be you. That's okay. I'm going to come in looking like me,
Mm-hmm.
my authentic self. And then you realizing that you sized me up. I had a lady one time, no lie. When I started the job, my hair was in twists. It was these cute long twists or whatever. And I went into the meeting, sat at the wall, right? And then there was a question that was posed in the meeting. No one in the room knew me, right? And so they posed the question. Everybody's looking around. I'm like, so nobody knows the answer to this? Excuse me, right? And I gave them the answer, gave them the definition of the term, how to implement it, all of that. And then you should have seen their faces. And then after that, the lady said, I was really wrong about you. And I was thinking, well, what were you wrong about? She said, I judged you by your hair. And I just figured you were just a young Black girl. And I remember it made me think about how my mother, who grew up at a different time, was like, if you're going into corporate America, your hair needs to be straight. You don't need to look too ethnic with your hair. What? We're absolutely taught that. Don't look too ethnic. No, I want to wear my hair natural or braided or whatever. At one point, I got so comfortable, it was purple. That's neither here nor there. But I ain't saying go all crazy. But what I am saying is, it was important for me to be able to be in these spaces where they didn't expect me to even be in the room, let alone at the table, and still be myself. And you still have to respect me because of what I'm bringing to the table that you need. I have the knowledge. I've got the information. I've got the answers that you need. I got the solution that you're looking for. And that's really what you care about. That's the bottom line, right? Is them being able to recognize what you're really bringing to the table. It's amazing to me how that works.
This is powerful because that's something that has really needed to be said in this space. Imposter syndrome.
Yes, that is such a thing that people. So I think a lot of times, especially for our Black men, right? I think our Black men suffer more with it than our Black women do. And I think that's because the other side has accepted Black women a little more than what they are with our Black men.
And to that point, a wise man once told me, he said, they'll let a Black woman indoors that they would never let a Black man.
It's true. It's almost as if we become an exception. We'll let them in. But then our Black men are still being judged and minimized and not given the opportunities. And so I think that's something that we can't disregard. That imposter syndrome is very real. You're being made to already feel like you're not worthy. And although we know historically it's a known thing that you get into a space, you might get that opportunity to get your foot in the door, but how hard you have to work to prove that you deserve to be there. right? Or that you deserve the promotion more so than this guy over here because of how he looks and who he knows, right? Are you kidding me? How do you get that? It's just a completely different world than what I think people care to be honest about.
And just to put a ribbon or a bow tie on this segment, in your opinion, is it just more about leading with value versus trying to fit in?
So I don't believe in trying to fit in at
Mm-hmm.
all. I believe in standing out. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, I believe in value. You got to prove that. Let them see and they can't deny it. Right. So I'm not trying to fit in. I'm not trying, I don't do boxes. Right. So I'm not trying to fit in. I'm not trying to conform. None of that. I'm not trying to compromise so that you can feel more comfortable. I'm not trying to do any of that. Respectfully, right? This is me. And I have, like I said, I've got all these things I'm bringing to the table that you need. If I'm bringing it to the table and you need it, you're not turning it away, right? It's important that you establish yourself as that person that absolutely is bringing what they need. And when you do, they can't deny you. And
Mm-hmm.
then you don't, fitting in is not a thing at all. You are simply you in all your greatness.
Absolutely. That's powerful. And with that being said, that's a good segue into your book, Elected Brown
Yes.
Girl. What was the moment you knew this wasn't just a personal story, but something that is needed to be shared with everyone?
What's funny about that is I was writing a much larger book, which I still
Mm-hmm.
am trying to finish. It's a pretty big chapter book. And Elected Brown Girl was really a chapter in that book, but it was a chapter that was leaping out at me because of certain conversations I was having with different women. And I said, man, I think this really needs to be brought out. And so after some consideration, I said, you know what? I'm going to pull this chapter out and I'm going to make it a standalone book because we have too many brown, Black women, right, that are dealing with so much adversity, so the disparities in the workplace, just so many different things when it comes to just their confidence, their voice, being their authentic self, and all of that. That I said, listen, let me tell this story real quick because it's at the foundation of who I am. And the reason why so many different women were coming to me was because we see you doing it. We see you have no problem with speaking up. You have no problem with just pursuing what you have on your heart or mind to do. So I said, I'm going to pull this book out. And I did. And it's funny because it ended up resonating with not just women, but even girls. So although it's Elected Brown Girl, it wasn't necessarily intended for young girls.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it was written at a level that regardless of whether you were a middle school kid or whether you were somebody in your 60s, 70s, because believe it or not, I've had women even at that age reach out to me about the book to say, I saw myself in this chapter right here really hit home. And they would tell me different stories of things that they experienced in their life and how they wish that they had someone that was saying the things that I pull out as points and takeaway, because I try to make sure I do that in every chapter. Here's the takeaway. Yes, I experienced this. However, what was the lesson learned in it? What was it that I was supposed to really take away from it and allow that to build me to be able to build on it and become
Mm-hmm.
even stronger, even wiser, even more confident in who I am? And so I had to pull it out, and I'm so glad I did because I've literally been able to go into the school system here and do some speaking and different opportunities to mentor and everything. And it's turned out to be a great thing.
Yes, ma'am. What happens when brown women or anyone stop waiting to be chosen and start claiming space?
Greatness. That's what happens. The
Mm-hmm.
funny part about Elected Brown Girl, because some people really pinpoint on the elected part. And I think that it's more so. So if I was to break down the term, most people would think one, they tend to think politics, right? Because that's when you
Mm-hmm.
have elections.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even really what it's about. I mean, it really has nothing to do with politics at all. It has everything to do with more so a declaration, right? I'm making this declaration that I am the elected brown girl. I'm that girl. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much power in that. It's part of the reason why we do affirmations, right? You know what? Let me build myself up. Let me speak this out loud over myself because I know that I'm created for greatness. And it's not about, oh, the sky's the limit. No, there's no limit. None up here, right? Soar as high as you want to go. Be as great as you want to be. Do all the things. I feel like when last year it kind of hit me that so often we're taught you got to find
Mm-hmm.
your niche and boom, that's it. That is such a narrow mindset. I don't need to find a niche. And it hit me one day. I'm the niche. I am me and all the things. I'm the niche. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. Oh, I have this idea. And I'm going to do these things. And I'm going to fulfill all the things I was created to do. That's what being that girl is. It's really about embracing who you are, right? All the greatness that comes with being yourself and saying, I belong in this space. I belong in whatever space I decide to walk in. I belong here. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, man, it's powerful. I love the energy. Our
Yeah.
people, everybody needs to hear this because that's the type of energy we need to bring. There is no limit.
Yes,
There is no box. Have that confidence to
absolutely.
love ourselves, that energy to know that we're destined for something more greater than even ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's funny because growing up, my parents absolutely taught me that I could be anything, I could do anything. My dad, he's always had such confidence. When I see my dad, I'm like, my daddy can do anything. I was that little girl that was like, my daddy can beat your daddy. If they playing basketball, my daddy finna beat your daddy. If they fishing, my daddy gonna catch more fish than your daddy. Like it just growing up, my dad is the greatest. Like he was a superhero. Or and
Mhm.
so that same image like that he portrayed for me of hey, ain't no limits. If I might not know how to do something, but I bet I'm gonna figure out how to do it and I'm gonna do it as best as I can, and it's gonna be amazing when I'm done. That's what my dad taught me just through his example. So then I'm like, listen, I'm as good as my daddy. I'm as great as my daddy. And so having that example and then me just taking that on and embodying this is who I am. Plus, at an early age, my mom taught me the meaning of my name. And I
Mhm.
talk about this in the book, right? So my name is Candace, and
Mhm.
Candace is actually the title that was given to the Ethiopian queens. And so it wasn't a name. Candace wasn't a name for the queen. It was her title for the Ethiopian queens. When I realized that, I was like, oh, well then y'all can just call me queen. You don't even have to call me Candace.
Yes,
And so,
ma'am.
so literally, I'm at school in elementary telling the kids, y'all can just call me queen. I run this school. I was like, no, it's queen to you. And so again, at an early age, I was like this confidence level. That doesn't mean, and let me be real clear here, right? That doesn't mean I've never dealt with insecurities. That doesn't mean that I've never dealt with self-doubt. That doesn't mean that I never had to deal with the negative talk, right? Or anything else, a self-sabotage, whatever. It doesn't mean I
Mhm.
never had to deal with those things. It just simply means that I had to constantly remind myself. I had to constantly remind myself of who I am and why I deserve to be in the space, why I deserve to have a voice in the room. And it was that reminder. That's the reason, again, elected brown girl. It's a declaration. It's a self-declaration of who you are and why you deserve to be in the space.
Yes, ma'am. And you know what? I think a key important part that a lot of our people miss out on or don't understand the significance of having, whether you are a girl and having that father in the household or the
Mhm.
son having his mother in the household that
Yes,
shows how to love women and treat women,
yes,
and the man showing their daughter how to have confidence and love herself.
yes,
I think that's a key important part that unfortunately a lot of our community, so what we see is a lot of unhealed men and unhealed women
yes.
that cause traumas.
You know what? It's funny because I think when I do different coaching sessions, because I do coaching too, when I do different coaching sessions, that trauma that's there is very real. And it manifests even when it comes to your career. I think people think your career, that's just black and white. I've got this job. Here's my duties, right? And I'm going to just go to work, do my job. And I'm going to just, if I want to, maybe keep climbing the ladder or whatever. And they don't even realize that the traumas back at home, the traumas from when you were a kid, those things are surfacing at work. It's absolutely surfacing at work. And so whether you're going into a job interview and you don't feel like that they're going to choose, that they're going to hire you, you're already going in there basically self-sabotaging because you're displaying self-doubt without even realizing that it's noticeable. And it has everything to do with the fact that you're telling yourself, you know what, I know they don't even want me for this job. And they probably gonna pick Joe Blow over here. We are allowing those unhealed traumas to cross over into not just the workplace, but our business pursuit, right? You want to be the CEO of a company, but you yourself aren't even able to present your company in the way that says you need the services that I provide. You need the products that I make, right? You're not even presenting that. Instead, what they're able to see is that you're questioning yourself. And if you're questioning yourself, then why would I trust you with my money? Why would I invest? Why would I purchase? Why would I contract you when you're not even portraying the confidence that's needed in order to really succeed in the career choice, whatever business venture? It totally runs clean over into the different things that we pursue.
So what advice would you give to professionals trying to redefine themselves beyond a single title or career path or past traumas?
Oh, yeah, that's another good one, Redtwaun. You be coming with them. So honestly, the only thing I can even think to say is just embrace who you are boldly. You don't have to, again, you don't have to fit in. It's a lot of things, I guess I touched on already. You don't have to fit in, right? You simply need to embrace who you are boldly, because a lot of times it's the questioning of whether or not you deserve it. It's the doubting as to whether or not you think they see. And it's, listen, you don't have to feel stuck in a career path just because that's something you've done. You don't feel, there was one point, you talk about single titles. There was one point where I wore two. The company literally hired me for two different jobs, which was kind of nice because that check was for two different jobs. Right? So I literally had two different roles at the same time. And I think there was significance in that happening for me to understand, again, I don't have to have a narrow mindset. I don't have to try to fit down this career path that somebody said is the right way to go. I can simply create a path that fits with who I am and what all I bring to the table, which is why I said I don't have to try to find a niche. I am the niche, right? If God created me, he knew what he did. He put all these different things in me, right? And I'm here to bring out all those things. I'm here to fully embrace all those things. And I think a lot of times the problem is we feel like we have to choose something. We feel like, oh, well, my mama got this one job with this company and she stayed with that company for 30 years. That is craziness. I learned very quickly in my career, I'm not here to be loyal to a company. They're not loyal to you. They're loyal to the bottom line.
Yep.
They're loyal to the ROI, right? They're loyal to the profit. They're not loyal to you. Because if it comes down to it, this is why you need to have your own business. If it comes down to it, they're going to say, oh, we're going to have to lay off so-and-so. We don't even know her name, but it's an employee number. And we're going to have to lay her off because we can't afford it because we need our numbers to stay. But come on now. I had to quickly learn that staying loyal to a company is a huge mistake, because I remember I worked for a company and I was busting my butt, working crazy hours. Here I was, a single mom, and I was having to have my grandmother pick my son up from school and take him home because I needed to work late. Because I got this, I'm trying to get this done and blah. And I'm putting in the work to the point to where the manager that I had, the supervisor I had, noticed it, right? And she said, you deserve a raise. And I was like, man, I really appreciate that because I sure need it. And she was like, and at the time I was making $30,000. I'll never forget this. Yes, I was making $30,000. And so she said, I'm gonna try to get you a $10,000 raise. I feel like you deserve it. That will help. Thank you. So she goes to HR, knocked it down. HR was like, nah, but we'll give her 5. But that's the most we're gonna give her. We'll give her 5 more. So they bumped me to 35. And I was really disappointed, right? And someone else that had been also watching me perform came to my desk and was like, hey, are you open to a new job opportunity? And I was like, of course I am, right? And part of me was thinking, man, my supervisor really believes in me and she just pushed to get me this raise, but HR knocked it down. So it didn't even matter. The value that I was bringing to the organization, HR decided I'm only worthy of, okay. So I said, absolutely, I am. So they said, well, I'm going to pass your resume on and they'll contact you. Sure enough, the company contacts me. I do an interview and then they have me do a meet and greet with the government customer, right? They come back. We're walking out of that meet and greet because they could tell the meet and greet went well, right? Me showing up, my just authentic self. And I come out of there, they hand me a sticky note and say, I hope this will be acceptable to you. On that sticky note was the salary that they were offering me, which was double the number that I had just got to. And in that moment, I said, wait a minute, you value me 2 times more than this company that I've been busting my tail for. Something ain't right here. And it was funny because I left that company gladly to do less work for more money, mind you, because I went from being a project coordinator, building databases and managing their manufacturing kits and all this stuff. I went from that to being an executive assistant, sitting at a desk, answering phones. I said, wait a minute, what? I remember telling Mama, do you realize how much these crazy people trying to pay me to do nothing? She said, girl, you better sit there and take that money, right? And so, because again, I'm thinking like, I ain't no way I deserve this much money. Lessons, right? These are lessons I'm kind of learning as I go. And so then, crazy part is, fast forward a few years later, that same company that wouldn't even give me a $10,000 raise to get me to 40K had to pay me 6 figures to come back and manage their programs, right?
Talk about it.
So my thing is, again, lessons that I learned, it's, hey, one thing we do is we try to just get our foot in the door and we say, if you just give me this, I'll be good with that. Mistake. And then we also will sit there and settle for the sake of staying loyal to a company that's not loyal to you, that doesn't feel like you deserve more than what they're giving you. I said, oh, this is craziness. And so I learned very quickly that it is important for me to recognize my own value. It is important for me to make sure that whether they realize it or not, understand I won't settle for less than what I believe my worth is. And I'm gonna tell you this one last thing. I had an interview one time where the guy was like, so what type of salary are you looking for? And I gave him my number. And because of some other job interviews I had been on, or not even, some of them weren't even job interviews, it was precursor conversation where I said, hey, before we go any further, let me just make sure you understand my salary requirements, because I don't want to waste your time. I don't believe in that, right? And some of those are like, oh, ain't no way we can afford that. They pay you that? And I'm not accepting less. I told this man, this is the number that I'm looking for, and I realized that might be a big number. You know what he told me? He said, had you said a number that was less than that, I would say you're not the right fit. I said, wait a minute, what? He said, that would mean you're not the right fit. It would mean that you're not at the level of what we're looking for. So if I came in there and said, hey, you could just give me 75K, he would have said, you junior level, I ain't got time for that. I'm trying to get the senior level person. Just from throwing out a number. And it had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he was already wowed by my resume. If I would have thrown out the number that was down here, where most people think, oh, this is what they're expecting, and that's probably all I can get, and I'll settle for that. Instead, I'm like, no, it needs to be up here, and I'm not moving on that. And that right there was the answer that let him know I'm at the level that he's looking for. We have to recognize that. and stop coming into space, getting an opportunity at the door. You right there at the door, and your answer is down here because that's how you view yourself, because somebody has told you that this is what the acceptable. No, you got to raise that, change that mindset and say, actually, no, I deserve this much, and take that approach. And when you do, is when the right person hears it and says, oh, then we need you over here. They're not going to pay you, but we will. I want to be with the folks that's going to pay me what I need.
Yes, ma'am. Man, audience, I hope y'all enjoying this. There's been a lot of gems dropped, experience, knowledge.
Yeah.
I appreciate this interview for sure. And the question I have for you, when people look at your work 10 years from now, what do you hope defines your legacy?
Realness. And the reason why I say that is because out of all the many conversations that I have with people, what I value the most is that they realize how real I am, right? I believe in being transparent.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the things that you experience in life are not just for you to experience and just hold for yourself. I believe in leaving a legacy. It should be one that really demonstrates that you understand you have a purpose in being here. And that purpose has to do with helping others, right? Sharing knowledge, sharing the experiences that help shape you and get you to where you are, not leaving folks behind you. Y'all better figure it out on your own. I really want people to be able to look back and say, what? One thing about it, she was real. She didn't have a problem with telling how she got from here to there, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was open. And the things that she shared with me helped me, one, to not feel bad about myself, to not feel like I got to have it all figured out or all together or be this certain type of person, but that I can literally just be my authentic self. And the world just got to figure out where to fit in when it comes to me, not me have to fit in with them, right? And so I think at the end of the day, I just want to be known as real. I grew up as a PK where I was known as the pastor's daughter, the first lady's daughter. And I got tired of that. I got tired of feeling like I got to try to fit the mold. I don't believe in fitting the mold. I just simply want to be my real self. And what you see is what you get. I'm a hoodie, ball cap type of girl who just, I've got all these different gifts and talents and things that God has blessed me with. And I want to be able to share the wealth. I want to be able to share the knowledge. I want to be able to share the resources. I want to be able to embrace who I am and help others do the same thing. Embrace who you are. Flaws and all don't matter. Just be great in who you are, your authentic self.
Absolutely. Candace, this has been a powerful conversation about leadership, ownership, and legacy. Thank you for bringing your voice, your experience, and your truth to CEO at the gas pump.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Of course. Guys, until next time, I am Redtwaun Hill, and that is Mrs. Candace Erskine. Until next time, we are out.